Hey guys, so welcome back to my update video. So as promised, this is the update video and it's a completely new inverter system. So just to introduce you guys, this is the Schneider Conext XW Plus 6848 with the mini power distribution box. So the mini power distribution box is down here, and then the inverter is the upper part here. Everything else is the same except for the inverter stuff. So my Midnite Classic is still the same, but everything is rearranged. So I'll just go over. So the reason why I decided to go with a hybrid inverter system, just because I want to be able to run bigger load and then not having to kill my batteries, because my battery bank is still the same. At this point in time, I don't feel it's worth it to invest in a newer battery bank, just because the technology is still changing, and I think there'll be another big change coming up, whether in prices or technology. So I didn't want to invest in a big battery bank. So I went with the hybrid solution, just so I can tie this to the grid, but not feed in the grid, but I just want to tie it to the grid so I can run bigger load. So what this inverter does is that it ties to the grids, and then if you run it in grid support mode, it will use just depend on how you set your voltage on your battery, of how much you want to take out of your solar and battery bank, and then it will use the rest from the grid. So what's new? There's quite a few things that's new. So you see that conduit? See this conduit? So that's new. So that ran over to the left over here. You see this back to back with my main panels outside my house. So I had a friend who was an electrician, and so he came over and helped me out. And what we did was we installed this sub panel right behind the main panels, and then we split a bunch of circuits, all of the load that I want to be on my solars. And so we splice all of those breaker, and we take that and then we put it into this load centers, right? And then we took two lines, the line 1 and line 2 from the grid, from the main panels. So we took that in, and it goes through this box. Doesn't tie to this. It goes through, and it goes through the conduit, and it goes to the mini power distribution box. So that is the grid input power for the inverter. And then from there, from the inverter, the output of the inverter will go backwards. Will go from here back into this load centers or sub panel, and that's what powering all of this breaker right here. So right now I had like my kitchens, my refrigerators, all of the lighting in the house, and then this right here is the most important one. This is the 220, 240, my central air conditioner. So my HVAC, it's a 3-ton HVAC condenser is actually on here. So I'll explain that in a little bit. So that would go, the inverter will go back and feed all of that. So to go back here, so basically this box is the power distribution box, and it's just divided up into two sides. There will be, I'll do an in-depth video if you guys interested, anybody interested. So they just split it in half. This side is mostly DC, and then this side is all AC wiring. So the conduit comes in right here to the right, and it goes in, and the grid power goes into this two-pole breaker, and that's the inputs. You can turn this on and off, the grid on and off, that feed into the inverter. So obviously if you turn this off, the inverter will go into off-grid mode. And then this breaker is the output for the inverter. So if I want to shut the inverter off, shut the outputs off. And then this right here is the bypass. So basically I can only turn either of this on at the same time. So if I flip this off and then turn this on, and if this was on, if the grid was on, that will bypass the whole inverter, and that will let that whole sub panels over to the left would run completely on the grid. So let's say something goes wrong with the inverter, it's not working, then all I have to do is flip on the grids and then flip this on, and then this flips off. That will basically put that whole all of that outlets back to the grid powers. So that's pretty much it. And then this is just the battery, the inverter, 250 amps breaker for the inverter to the battery, and then this right here is the charge controller breaker, and then this is the PV breaker. So it's really simple. I liked it because everything is now concealed, nice and neat. I mean, although it's a bunch of wire in there, maybe that's why I don't want to show you guys, because there's a big mess in there, but it's a lot cleaner if you're looking on the outside right now. So like right now, only have about 250 watts running in the house early in the morning. And okay, oh, that event red arrow light is because I shut the grid off. If you have it in grid support, and if you shut the grids off, you know, the inverter thinking the power went off, and that's just an error that it gives. Okay, so back to the Midnite. So as you guys know, I've watched my last video, I've remount all my solar, and now I got 8 of the 320 watts panels on there, giving me about 2.5 kilowatts max. But it's heading towards summer here, and it's getting really hot, so I'm not getting anywhere near that output. So I'm getting about 2100s at noon or around there. So right now it's ready. It's only 7:30 in the morning, and it's ready and absorbs 95%, 500 watts. It's only 7:30, so it's pretty good. And then this box, this is new too. So this is the water heater control panels. So all this does is that this, see the wires that goes right here, this is coming out of my 48-volt battery bank. So it's go up. Oh, that's the other thing I forgot to mention. I reconfigure my 4 battery. Instead of 24 volt, I reconfigure it to 48 volts, and that's a whole hell of a lot better than going with the series and parallels. If they were all in series, it's a hell of a lot more easier to manage 4 battery that's in series versus 4 battery that's in series and parallels, because you know, if you buy a brand new battery and they all match, that's good. But the battery that I got is somewhat used it, and they all have different age on them and stuff like that. So putting them in series and parallel is just a bad idea. So putting them in all in series actually helped out to keep them the voltage balance out and keep them in check. So basically, this is the control box. So what you see in here is just basically I have a fuse and a breaker. So I forgot to tell you guys, this is all Midnite fuse, DC fuse and breaker, and man, they work really good. So if by chance, I know in my last video I mentioned that I was using those audio fuse, but they don't work as well as these breakers. So they're like I think they're like $22, $23 for these breaker, and they go anywhere from 15 amps to like 125 amps. So obviously down here for my solar, for my charge controller, for the Midnite Classic 150, this is a 90 amps, and then for my PV, this is a 60 amp for my PV. It's a little bit too much, but they didn't have the one that I want in stock, which is about 40 amps to 50 amps. So I went with the 60, you know, what the hell. So, and this is for my for the water heater, of course, and it's a 30 amps because the water heater will regularly do about 22 amps. So that's why I put a 30 amps on there. So basically, the reason why I put this relay in here is because the 48 volt, the little thermostat that I used to cut it off at the water heater from Missouri Wind and Solar, it doesn't really work on high voltage DC. It probably worked on the 24 volt. It did work for a while, but it still was getting hot. Too many amperage was passing through it. It just couldn't handle it. So I just have to go with this relay. It's a 25 amps, you know, up to 250 volts DC. So it works a whole lot better, but it still needs a heat sink. So basically, I have the auxiliary channels on the Midnite coming out, and it goes right here. This is the 12 volt auxiliary channel. So I'm letting the charge controller the state of charge. So once the battery get up to like 98%, 99% full, then the Classic will turn that relay on, and it goes in here and it turns this relay on. But I have it in series. So the thermostat, the stock thermostat on the water heaters, I ran that relay through that thermostat as well. So there's a few things that has to go perfectly for the water heater to turn on. So this thing have to tell have to power the 12 volt, which is turn on that relay, and then the thermostat has to be cold so that it closed circuits, and then if that's closed, and then this is on, this relay will comes on. Well, plus this breaker. So everything is all in series with each other. So that's how everything works. So this will turn on and it runs the battery down to like from 98% to 96%. If I have enough solar, then it won't drain out of the battery, and it will keep running until the thermostat shuts off. So that's basically it. And then this meter will comes on when the relay kicked on and turned on itself, and it will tell me how much it's using and how much it has been using. So I'll turn it on real quick right here and show it to you. So right now I just turn it on manual. So I just turn it on real quick so you can see. Right now it's pulling 1200 watts. That's 48 volt elements. It's 1000 watts elements, and because it's on 50 volts, 49 volts, it's pulling 1200 watts. So 24 amps. And then so as of the day that I installed this, which is a few months ago, my water heater has been using 291 kilowatts. So that's how much it has been running. So I can open this up and show you the inside. So you see that fan kicks on, keeping the heatsink cool, keeping the relay cool. And then this shunt is for this meters. So that's what it's measuring. It's measuring the amperage and the voltage. So it'll give me that readings. Okay, so this is what they call a Comm Box. So basically this is just a communication box. It's hooked to the inverter, and then I can locally monitor it, or I can do it over the internet and monitor the system, see what it's doing. That's pretty much it. And the little box down here is just a wireless splitter, so that I can split my wireless for the Midnite Classic, because I still use the Midnite Classic to monitor, because seeing these two different brands, they don't talk to each other. So I can't really, if I were to have the Schneider charge controller as well, it will tell me, it will get hooked up to the Comm Box and I can monitor them both, but unfortunately I don't have it. So this is the old sub panels, and I still have it hooked up. So hooked up to this, I think it was a 10 gauge cable right there, and it still goes into this inverter outputs, and then it still power a few circuits in there. I mean, I could get rid of this. Probably in the soon future, I'll probably get rid of this and then just use that over there, that new sub panels over there, and get rid of these outlets. So, and then this, of course, just a timer for the fan, for the vent fan, and then the other one is just for the refrigerator that cools the battery. Hey guys, so here's the inverter running in grid support mode. So right now it's pulling power from the grid, and it is inverting 1.8 or almost 1.9 kilowatts. So that's about 1900 watts. My solar, my Midnite Solar, is currently putting out 1900 watts. It's freaking hot outside right now. That's why I'm not getting my maximum efficiency. It's about 92 degrees outside, and it's actually hotter in my garage. So it's like 93 in my garage right now. The battery voltage is at 51 volts because I have set the inverter to invert as much power as possible, but only pull the battery voltage down to 51 volts and no lower. So basically what that does is that it's keeping the battery almost at full charge, but it's not using anything out of the battery. So you can see here, so right now it's putting out as you can see 1900 watts, and then if I go into my battery, it's full, it's at 100%, and then it's only negative 56 watts. So if I raise that voltage, like, you know, 51.2 or something like that, then that would be zero. But, you know, negative 50 watts out of the battery, it's not then pulling a little bit, and it'll, once the air conditioner is stopped, then it'll recharge back up again. But basically right now I'm consuming 1900 watts. So that's with my 3-ton air conditioner running. And if you can see here, here is the dashboard for the inverter. So basically with the big air conditioners running, and my window, my 6000 BTU window air conditioner is running, and a refrigerator and a lighting in the house, it's currently pulling about 3600 watts, almost 3700 watts, and it's inverting the DC power for my solar is putting out about 2100 watts. Therefore I'm pulling about only 1800 watts from the grid. So I'm actually using more solar power to power my load right now, my air conditioners, central air conditioner. So I wish I have, maybe if I have like 8 more panels, and you know, I could probably not, you know, using any power from the grid at all. Obviously I could run this in off-grid, like I did. I'll show you what happened if I run this completely in an off-grid. It will still start my air conditioner, and it will still run my air conditioner. If my battery is at 100%, I could run my central air conditioner for like probably half an hour to 45 minutes on my batteries, and then drag it down to about 80% state of charge. But that's not something I want to do regularly. I only do it once in a while to exercise the battery. What you see in here is I have my big central air conditioner running right now off grid. I had it on grid and running grid support, but it wasn't when the air conditioner unit get to temperatures and it shuts off and it's not using my battery. So it's kind of bothering me that my solar go to float and does absolutely nothing. So I took it off grid, and then took it off grid support, and then just run it off grid completely. That red flashing you see right now is not because of the voltage errors, but because it took it off grid and it's not detecting grids. So that's why it's flashing that error. But the voltage for the battery, my 48 volt battery bank, it's still at 48.4, so we're good there. So basically my central air conditioner and some lighting in the kitchens right now, it's pulling 3100 watts, and I am pulling 3600 watts out of the it's not coming all out of my battery bank, because the inverter, my charge controller is a Midnite Classic, so it doesn't talk to the Schneider inverter stuff, so it doesn't know where the power is coming from. But Most of the power is coming from the solar and not the battery. So if I were to switch over to my Midnite app, as you can see, my solar is putting out 2,000 watts right now, and my battery's at 95%, and this is how much is coming out of my battery. So 1,400 watts is coming out of the battery, which is at, see, 29 amps coming out of the battery. And my battery is very small. My battery is only 100 amp hours, so this means that I can do this for probably about 30 minutes to an hour max. I think 30 minutes may be more correct. So I'll shut it off in 30 minutes. I just want to exercise the battery a little bit because it has been full for the past 3 to 4 days. Because I was running the system on grid support mode, and on grid support mode it won't pull any battery out of the battery. It will just use whatever is available from the solar panel and not the use power out of the battery. So I just want to exercise the battery a little bit while I'm at home today. But basically, see, this is the consumption, and this is how much I'm actually consuming right now. 3,400 watts. Let's see, so go back to the Schneider. That's fairly close, 36 versus 3,400. So that should be about right. So that's pretty much basically it. I'm actually running my 3 ton. It's 3 tons central air conditioners, but it's only the condenser units, not the air handlers. The air handler is still on the grids, and I think I'll just leave it that way and just have the condenser on the solar.